In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to master Monaco on F124, probably the most difficult, technical and challenging track on the whole F1 calendar. So, with that being said, let's get into the heart of the video and straight into the action. Here we are at Monaco at the final corner, and even before starting your lap, you want the car to be as straight as possible, to be maximizing grip potential, to get as much momentum going onto the pit straight as possible. Around Monaco, qualifying is everything, so you really want to focus on the details, be gaining every thousandth of a second to be increasing your chances of that pole position happening, and of course you can win the race from there. So with that being said, turn one is very unusual. Normally you'll be approaching the corner from the outside of the track, but because of the block of flats directly ahead of you, the track and the barrier actually has to curve to the right hand side. So what you do to accommodate that with your new racing line is you want to be on the yellow line on the right hand side with your right hand side tires, and then also pointing towards the hashtag Monaco GP barrier directly ahead of you. By staying on this racing line, it will mean that you have the optimal line going into turn one once we have allowed for the barrier to change its line and change its trajectory going into the first corner. This yellow line is actually the pit exit line, so it's a really good, very stable, very consistent reference to be using. It will constantly be there during the whole practice, qualifying and racing sessions around this track. As you get underneath the Rolex board of the 50-meter board on the left-hand side, that is where you want to be braking and going down into third gear. As we talked about before, by following that hashtag Monaco GP board directly ahead of you, it will bring you to the optimal line on the left-hand side of the track, very close to the barrier to be turning into the first apex. 2 wheels on the inside curb is very nice here, but do not go 4 wheels over the inside curbing, quite simply as you will risk the track invalidation. On the exit here, you want to be going right up against the barrier to be gaining as much track width as possible, and then rising up over the hill towards Casino Square. You do not want to be close to the barrier on the inside here because there are some bumps. Ideally, you want to be following this white line with your left-hand side tyres because that will avoid the bumps, meaning that you have a higher top speed potential going up and over the hill towards Casino Square. Hit the bumps, your car will bottom out with the floor of the car, be costing you top speed potential. Now, as you rise up and over the crest going towards the casino, you actually do not have a distinct braking reference and or turning in reference. So you'll be approaching the corner in 6th gear, but as you get towards this zebra crossing, this is where you'll start to brake. Like I say, it's not distinct because you're traveling so quickly and it's not easy to spot it. A much easier reference is as this advertising barrier on the right hand side starts, then you'll be hitting the brake by, like I say, the 20-30% mark, and then you'll be immediately going down to 5th gear, delaying your 4th gear downshift until later in the corner. I'll explain later on why. As you go in towards the apex, you want to start getting closer and closer and closer to this barrier. Eventually, your clipping point of the apex, your ideal racing line, will be as this red and white curbing on the left-hand side ends. And then this is when you downshift to 4th once you are past that red and white curbing. The reason you downshift later in the corner is every single time you downshift the car, you can get a bit of rotation benefit from downshifting the car at the right time. So if you did a double downshift from 6th straight to 4th earlier, the most of the corner will be struggling with understeer, and then that will not be optimal. But if you do your downshift slowly, initially down to 5th and then later on down to 4th, you'll have extra rotation at this later point in the corner that will help you get around this apex as efficiently as possible. As you exit the first left-hander though, then you want to be bringing your car nice and tight to the barrier on the left-hand side of the road. As then you turn into the right-hander, you want to be getting as close to the curbing, I should be saying, on the inside as you actually can, dabbing the brake by like 5 or 10% to put the weight transfer over the front tires, and that will optimally get you rotated into the corner. Up and over the crest of the hill now, and this is where it gets technical, this is where it gets tricky. as you go over the crest of the hill, as we go into nose camera, you can actually see how much of an elevation change it is, and that becomes very difficult. As you go over that elevation change, it's very easy to get a snap of oversteer and end up in the outside barrier. So what you do is you anticipate this, and as you go up and over the crest of the hill, you reduce the throttle by about 10%, and this means you will not get that snap of oversteer, and you'll be nice and safe away from putting the car in the wall. Immediately after that though, and this is so high energy, this is why I love Monaco, and it's so difficult to nail, and I really want to get every detail extracted into this video for you today. So as you're going past this crest of the road, I think a lot of people mistake it for being a manhole cover, what makes the elevation change, but actually it's to do with a crown of the road what takes you off to the other part of the town here in Monaco. So that is why you have that elevation change randomly in the middle of the road. It's to do with two roads connecting together, and that's why you need to be driving around it. Otherwise you can end up bottoming out the car and losing top speed potential because of that. Going now down the hill, you do not have a distinct braking reference as you pull the car to the left hand side of the track, but you do have this sort of yellow gate, and that'll be the optimal place to be braking. So once you are side by side with that sort of yellow gate on the left hand side of the screen, that is where you start braking and going all the way down into second gear. Here it's so important to be conservative when you're braking, because it's so easy to lock up the front right tyre and go wide, and then from that point onwards you almost have unrecoverable understeer, and you will really struggle to get the car back to the optimal place on the track. So the optimal place on the track is as close to this inside curving as possible. So like I say, be conservative on the brakes, brake about 5-10 meters earlier than you actually think you need to, and that will normally be about right to mean that you don't lock up that front right tyre, and then you can get into the corner very, very efficiently. Going into the hairpin now, you will be bringing the car to the right hand side of the track, and then braking as this sort of barrier kinks out, then kicks back over to the right hand side, and then turning in where that sort of green paint is underneath the car. So getting the car as close to the barrier on the right hand side, and then starting to turn in where the sort of painted taxi line actually is, and then you can see the sort of green paint underneath the right hand side tyre. This is where you start turning in, and then you want to get to your clipping point of the apex. I like to keep the car in second gear, as I believe it gives me slightly better traction on the exit. Try to get two wheels on the inside curbing just about to lift up the tyre, and that will help pull you round the apex. On the exit of the corner, bring the car to the left hand side of the road, so now you are fully along that sort of white line in the middle of the track. If you can do that, then it will set you up nicely for this right-hander, and again you want two wheels on the inside curving. Don't go too far, otherwise like this you'll end up bottoming out and getting massive understeer. So just two wheels on that red and white part of the track will be a very, very nice way to go. On the exit again, just two wheels on the red and white curbing, quite simply because the barrier is there if you try to go further. Open up the corner as much as possible, then again turning in, you don't really have a reference here, but just dabbing the brake, keeping the car in second gear, and then just getting nice and close to this curbing on the inside. Then on the exit, you can run over this exit curbstone if you do need to, but ultimately you don't, and you just keep the car fully on the tarmac for optimal traction. Running through the tunnel right now, and there's a little sneaky line here to be gaining top speed potential. You would normally think go to the inside of a tunnel for the least distance around the corner, but there are quite a few bumps here, so actually what you want to be doing is keeping the middle of the car where this white line is in the middle of the track to avoid the bumps and getting a higher top speed potential. Bursting out into the sunlight now, and as you're rising down, well I should say falling down, not rising up, my apologies for my wording there. As you're falling down now this crest going into such a difficult chicane, you do not want to be tight to the barrier on the right hand side. The reason for that is, as you can see, the braking zone is actually curved here, so what you want to be doing is having about 1 car width, 1.5 car width or where this sort of white line is right now. And if you put your sort of right hand side tire where this white line is, as you now get down to the braking zone, you're able to keep the car completely in a straight line and then braking halfway between the 100 and the 50 meter board, so about 70-80 meters is optimal. Of course, there isn't an exact reference here, so a lot of it is just by feeling. Then you can keep the car in a straight line for as long as possible before turning into the chicane in third gear to be keeping the momentum up. Of course, getting as close to the barrier on the inside as you possibly can do, and then cutting this inside curbing is absolutely pivotal for lap time potential. And then this is a bit of a rule of thumb, because you do not have an easy view of what track limits are around this corner, so you basically want to be getting it so your left hand side tire has about half of a tire width away from the yellow part of the curbing. If you put your left hand side tire on the yellow part of the curbing, that is almost certainly going to be a track limit invalidation, and oh no, you do not want that. So what you want to do, like I say, get about half a tire width away from the yellow part of the curbing, and that'll be the optimal line. On the exit of the corner, you want to keep the car as tight as possible, so then you minimize the steering angle to avoid the barrier on the left hand side, ideally getting as close as possible to it. Quite simply, then you can get straighter and earlier and harder back to the power to be building up speed and downforce heading up to the back corner. You'll be approaching in fifth gear and keeping in fifth gear when in qualifying trim, and then this is only a lift, and it blows my mind how much speed you can carry through this corner on this game, but it is just a lift in fifth gear, avoiding to take the inside curbing actually, but just getting nice and tight. As you can see, if we do take the inside curbing, then we end up in a situation that the corner is quite tight, and as well the curbing is not flat actually, so it can be unsettling the car balance. So if we take the curbing on the inside, the corner is very tight from this point onwards, but as you can see, if we avoid the curbing on the inside and change our racing line just a little bit, be a bit wider on the entry, then at this point in the corner, exactly the same point, you can see how much more open the rest of the apex and the rest of the trajectory of the corner is to get back to the power and have confidence exiting sector 2 as we now go up to the swimming pool chicane, such a difficult segment on this track. Flat out through the left and the right, bringing the car to the left hand side of the road, and again, not really a braking reference to be using, so again, you just have to go by feeling going into this corner. Going through the right hand side, we'll go through the gears when we do a full hot lap speed example just after this, but I really want to get down the techniques before we go into the gears on the full hot lap example. Of course, getting really close to the barrier on the inside is so critical here. It allows you to open up the left-hander. You want to be committing all the way on this inside curbing, as you can see, just throwing the car over the inside, and exactly the same as the chicane coming out of the tunnel. What you want to be doing is just aiming to get two wheels, well, basically get your right-hand side tires half a tire width away from the yellow curbing, and that'll be optimal for track limits. And as you can see, this line that we're using right now will be just about perfect to avoid getting a track limit invalidation. Go any further than that, then you will risk the track limit invalidation going forward. Going into Rascast, what you want to be doing is putting the car to the left-hand side and pointing it as straight as possible to that building up ahead of you, or using the Pirelli board. There's so many Pirelli boards, but I'm going to show you very clearly, or aiming towards this exact Pirelli logo, and this will give the optimal line. Very, very, very critical to get the car as straight as possible in this braking zone. So as you can see, coming off the chicane right now, if we was going to do that example, aiming for that Pirelli logo, and now keeping the car nice and straight, and then again being very, very conservative on the braking here, because it's very easy to lock up a front right tire and go wide. Really, really aim to get as close to this inside barrier as you can, and this will allow you to get back to the power earlier, sooner, and more confident. Be aware though, the car can snap on the exit and be costing you a bit of traction. rising up over the crest of the hill for the final corner. Again, not really a braking reference to be using, but you just want to be dabbing the brake, and as you get towards the apex, the car will actually start to snap away from you, because as you're going closer and closer to the apex, you're actually traveling uphill, what means the car is going to have good grip. But as soon as you get towards the apex, then you actually go back downhill, and that will be costing you grip potential as well. So that's why the rear of the car can start sliding around in this example. Going out the final corner, opening DRS, and then keeping the car to the right hand side of the track for the run up to the start finish line. And that is a lap here in Monaco. What now we're going to do is do a full speed example and be talking you through it. So, going into the corner, open up the final apex as much as possible, DRS wide open, keep the car to the middle of the road, look for the yellow line, and then now braking just underneath the board. Again, 2 wheels on the inside, curbing back on the power, rising up over the hill. Do not go close to the barrier on the inside of the track, and then you can see down to 5th, and now down to 4th later in the corner. Keep the car tight, and now just a bit of a dab on the brake, avoid the power spike, avoid the bump, then the yellow on the left hand side. Keep the car tight to the inside, keep it in second gear, and then turning in and just trying to get that the curb on the inside. Left hand side of the line, keep it in second gear. Down here, keep it in second gear again, nice and close to the curbing, and again nice power on the exit. Don't minimize the distance here, avoid the bumps, keep the car to the middle of the road. Into 7th, again around 18 meters, 17 meters down into 3rd, and again going through the curbing very nicely there, through to back, and then now up to 5th, just lifting the throttle, keeping confidence on the entry. As you can see, actually touching the barrier a little bit on the exit, that's a-okay. Into swimming pool, into 4th gear, and now you can see nice and committed with the curbing. Keep the car straight in the braking zone, down to 2nd, let the car rotate back to the power, final apex of the lap, and then going into 2nd, 3rd, DRS wide open, 6th, 7th gear just before the start finish line, and that is a lap here in Monaco. Going into the garage, so now we can show you the setup as well from time trial, and then what you can be using for your own driving in GP mode, career mode, online races as well. 50-50, 100, 20, 100, all the way to the left, 38, 3, 13, 13, 22, 59, 97% on the brake pressure, and then 53, then this is the tire pressure in time trial. So immediately what I would recommend for you doing is putting the tire pressure to maximum, quite simply because maximum tire pressure is better in online mode or any mode where tire temperatures are enabled, such as career mode, GP mode, online mode as well. Going to 100% brake pressure. To be honest, putting 41 front suspension as it normally is the best. The 1313 anti-roll bar felt pretty nice, so I would probably keep that as well. The front ride height is going to help you over the curbing and keep the car a bit stable, so that's a good option, as well as the rear ride height is going to help the confidence as well. If you're struggling with the rear of the car sliding around a bit too much, then you can put the off-road differential to 25%, and that will be very, very nice for you indeed. Of course, nothing you can do about the wings, they're already maximized. So that's been my Hotlap guide on how to master Monaco for F124. Hopefully the video was helpful, informative, and you enjoyed it. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Grazie Vazazzi, ciao ciao, bye bye.